Hello guys, welcome to my channel. In my today's video, I'm going to talk about using of Microsoft Document Intelligence Service in processing of your data. Quite a hot topic, using of artificial intelligence in automation of business processes. Today I will show you how we can use power of artificial intelligence in your software solutions for automation of business processes. An example of processing invoices provided as PDF or image files. I will demonstrate a simple example of how you can use the Form Recognizer API in your Logic App workflow in Azure. Some of you already know that Logic App has a set of analysis connectors where you can find a form recognizer. But the technology is rapidly developed today, and some software components may become outdated quite quickly. So I will show you how you can use the intelligence service directly by using the API URL from your Logic app. I'm going to use a pre-built invoice model and the Document Intelligence version 3.1. Power BI, regular databases like Microsoft SQL Server. This demo is very much simplified because it's focused on the work of Document Intelligence Service, and we will look into details of how it processes documents. But the real-life solution, of course, has to be decoupled and consist of several parts, so that acceptance of data works separately from data processing, and consumer of data is also a separate process. For simplicity, I will show it with a SharePoint library, pretty often used solution, where the document will be saved in the document library in SharePoint, provided with metadata. The metadata will help to process the document further. So let's get started and switch over to Azure. And you have to have a resource group. And the first thing, you have to start off by creating an instance of Document Intelligence Service. Quite a simple and straightforward process. I'll give some name. We have to choose the pricing tier. For development, you can choose the free tier, F0, but remember that you can have only one instance on a free pricing tier per subscription. I choose this one. And we can go to the resource. After I have created the Document Intelligence Service, I will take the key and the endpoint to the service to be able to use it in my workflow. Then let's switch over to my Logic app. I will not show step by step how I created it, but I will explain all the elements which I used in this Logic app. First of all, this is the trigger to the email box, which will be triggered by the incoming email. It will read the email along with the attachments. As you can see, I start with accepting the email, and then this email will be deleted after processing. And then, because your email may have several attachments, this is for each loop, where each loop will process a single attachment. And the attachment will be saved to the blob, and then we get the URI to the file saved in the blob storage. And then this is the call to the Document Intelligence Service. In the endpoint is stored in the parameters, and we can find it here. This is the URL of the cognitive services of Microsoft. And you can find the detailed description of this service on in the Microsoft documentation. So the article named Get Started with Document Intelligence of the documents to AI services. Here you will find all the required how you get started with creation of the service instance, and you will find some document samples for your experimentations, and then you will find the URL to the service and also the result. But back to our example, I use the URL and the document model. Yeah, you will find a document model here. It can be some pre-built model. And by the way, you can use the pre-built model of Microsoft, and you have possibility also to train your own model. So if your document is much different from what is trained by Microsoft, you may train your own model to process your very specific documents. So here I use the pre-built invoice model. And you can see that I specify the version of API here. And this allows me to use different versions. If you use standard Logic App connectors, you are limited to the one implemented for this connector. But if you use generic HTTP request action and you control the URL yourself, you can choose the version which you wish. And then you can choose just the latest one, which gives you more possibilities. So the OCP API subscription key is the key from the Document Intelligence Service. And here I should go to the created one, and then I copy the first key, and I have to update it in parameter. This one was old. That's it. Endpoint should be updated as well, and the endpoint I use is this one. And then you see that in the request, we send the JSON payload to the service, where the payload consists of only one attribute, URL source, and then the web URL is provided to this section by this and by the action which creates URL for our file in the blob storage. And we need these two steps of buffering the document in the blob storage, because this service does the binary data provided to the API operation, but rather it uses the link to the document. So the document must be saved somewhere, and the service, the Document Intelligence Service, must have permission to get this document. I will explain it a bit further. Next, once the document is provided to the service for processing, the service responds immediately with the link which we will probe afterwards. And processing of the document requires some time, so requesting the result immediately will not give you a successful result. So here is the until cycle, which will repeat these two actions until the HTTP action returns the successful result. The status, which is the status attribute in the return data, should contain a succeeded word in it. This information you can get from the document, the description again. So the status is provided by the service when you probe the document URL, document result URL. So the get action, HTTP GET action, uses the URL provided to us by the previous action, by the post to analysis. It returns the URL in the header operation location. Then we use the same security key, the same key which we take from the intelligence service, and that's it. I use the delay here, not the best way to place it, of course, but for simplicity it just makes a 5-second delay, and if the result is not succeeded, then this request will be repeated again and again and again until the HTTP GET action returns succeeded, or the until loop uses the limit of 60 cycles or 1 hour. 1 hour, of course, is too much. 10 minutes would be a better choice. Then, once we have the result from the service, I will parse this data. The result data is fetched from the GET action, and in the document structure, which will be returned. So JSON schema will simply use the data further, and then I use the SharePoint connector, which will create a document in the SharePoint library for me. The name will be the email attachment name, which is roughly the file name, and the attachment content. So here at this step, there are no Document Intelligence Service results used yet. I just upload the attachment of the email to SharePoint as a document in the library. And then, having this element created, I provide additional attributes, and these attributes are taken from the Document Intelligence Service. So the ID to refer the SharePoint document has been created a step before. And then from the JSON parsing action, which is called, let's get back, parsed result, I use this value to place in these attributes. These attributes are metadata of the SharePoint document library. I'll switch over to SharePoint. It's not a mainstream topic for this video, but just to give more details about how the document is stored in SharePoint, I have created a document library. And if we go into the settings, we can find the columns. So I have also created the following columns in the document library: invoice number, invoice date, due date, customer, and total. These attributes allow for automatic processing of the document further. You can filter the list of documents by customer, for instance. You can prioritize documents by due date. You can implement some logic which is using the total number, so you can group invoices by that, and so on and so forth. So, and of course, you are free to use any attributes which you get from the document provided by the Document Intelligence Service. So if we look at the document library, it looks like this, empty so far, with these columns. And in SharePoint, the regular document or default document library looks like a storage of documents with predefined metadata like modified, who modified the document, who created the document, when it happened. But you are free to add more metadata, and you just add a column. Choose the column data type, and then you should provide the value to this column, which will participate in the automatic document processing. But let's get back to the Logic app. So you see now more clearly what these properties are. I use the properties provided by the SharePoint document library, and I put the values returned by the Document Intelligence Service and parsed by the parser action. And here we read the data. I will show you sometime later what the data returned by the Document Intelligence Service look like, so you and the structure of the data. So this action is the final action in my workflow, except that I delete the blob from the blob storage after processing, again only for keeping it clean. The real process should of course persist the data and keep it for some time in accordance with your retaining policy. So this is my Logic app. Again, bear in mind that this is very simplified logic, just for demonstration purpose, to show you the idea how the Document Intelligence Service can be used in your own solutions. And I'll show you first of all what document is processed first. This is one of the examples provided by Microsoft of the invoice. It's a PDF document, very well structured. So let's try processing this document as first one. I send this document by email and wait for the trigger of my Logic app starts picking up the document. I see that the document has arrived to my mailbox, and then let's check the Logic app. And here it takes about 15 seconds. As we see, all the actions were executed successfully. So let's go step by step to see what happened. The email trigger provided us the email with the attachment, array of attachments actually, but here I have only one. And the base 64 encoded invoice of PDF type with a name invoice PDF. So far, so good. Then this attachment is processed in the cycle. It first saved to the blob storage, and then the URL was generated. The blob storage generates the URL to the document where the source key is used. Source key is a shared access signature. So the blob storage generates this key, and when it's provided in the URL, it gives the permission specified by this key. And I requested access to read, write, list, and delete elements in the blob storage to be provided by this key. So the Document Intelligence Service reading this document by the link has access to the document provided by the link. So here we see that the URL is provided as URL source in the JSON document of the payload. And it returns status code 202, which means the data is accepted and is being processed or will be processed later. Then the next step is to get the results of the processing. And we see that there were done 2 cycles, 2 iterations. The first one uses the URL provided by the first request. We should find this URL in the header operation location. So the next HTTP action uses this URL to get the results of processing the document. Okay? we use this URL here. Just a simple HTTP request, GET request, and we of course provide the subscription key for the Document Intelligence Service. And we get the response to this request. Status running. No data yet. Status go to 100. The GET was processed successfully. That's why we need to make a next request. We wait for 5 seconds here. Then we go to the next iteration. We do the same again. Let's see the result. The status is succeeded, and then we have an extended data. There are quite a lot of data provided. So we start working with this data. The data structure contains, as you see, analyze result element, along with the content accepted, content of the document. And then it's split to pages, tables, styles, and documents. And we are interested in data which lay in the documents array. As you see, there's only one element here. And the document, one document, consists of doc type, which is the model used to process the document, bounding regions, fields, spans. So we look into fields, and here lays the data which we are interested in. Here we will find all the attributes of the invoice document. Okay. Vendor access, address, vendor name. Okay, here are the attributes of the invoice produced by the Document Intelligence Service by recognizing the PDF document for us. So for instance, the invoice ID is such an element with a type string, value string, which is the invoice number in this case, and the content, bounding region, the region and the coordinates of the region in the document. Confidence of recognizing the content, and spend some technical information which we are not interested in actually right now, but we are interested in the value content. So these attributes are further used by the parser. The parser is used for simplification of access to these attributes. We upload the document to the SharePoint document library. The SharePoint returns OK, 200, along with the file locator with the ID of the document created in the library. That's enough for us at this step. Then we supply the values retrieved from the document. So in this request, we use the data provided by the Document Intelligence Service from the recognized invoice document. We've got the customer read as Microsoft Corporation, due date 15th of December, invoice date, invoice ID, total 110. This data is saved into SharePoint library, and if we go to the library, we'll find this document saved along with these attributes, just what we wanted to get as a result. If you click on this document, here is the content, the PDF file. The next would be a bit more interesting because reading English document is pretty standard. And I would like to read an invoice produced in Norway. And the Norwegian invoice will look like this. It's a pretty standard invoice type, along with all the required attributes, specifying the customer, specifying the invoice number, invoice date, and due date, the total. And let's see how the Document Intelligence Service will process such a type of the invoice. I've sent the invoice by mail to my mailbox. Let's go and check how the Logic app will process it. It started working already. So let's wait until it's ready. I'm going to go directly to SharePoint library. And here is this invoice. And all the attributes are here. Invoice number, invoice date, due date, the customer, and the total. If we look at the invoice content, it is shown as we saw before. We can compare the result. Let's see. The invoice number 221153. The invoice date 27th of March 2020, and it's this date 27th of March 2020. Brilliant. Due date 16th of April 2020, and this is this for false data 16th of April 2020. Looks good. Customer Tennebø Arve Rune. We will find it here, Tennebø Arve Rune. Even though there is no indication that this is the customer name, it correctly recognized it is. And then the total 13,658. 13,658. I'm impressed. It works brilliant. And if we switch over back to the Logic app and we'll check the run. Yeah, there were also 2 cycles before the Logic app has got the result of processing the invoice. And then pages, tables, styles, documents. The first document. Fields. Customer address, customer ID. The customer name, yes. Value string or content. Then due date. This is the content taken from the document. This is the value date converted to the standard format. Invoice date the same. Invoice ID. Invoice total. Invoice total has the type currency, value currency, amount as a pure number, currency code, Norwegian crowns. Did we see Norwegian crowns here? No. But it's good. It's a default currency for the Norwegian invoice. Great. And the content. The content is just a value read from the document. So we get all the properties of the document which we are free to work with. we can implement our business logic based on processing of these attributes. So we can implement filtering, prioritizing, sorting, alerting of the stuff about the critical invoices or invoices which need to have attention on them. Very rich set of capabilities that we can implement in our business flows. So having this shown, let me finish my video. I'm glad you came to the end together with me and you saw, and I hope you got something new from my presentation, from my example. It's the demonstration of the simplest start of working with the intelligence service. Microsoft AI services is a huge set of capabilities of services in Azure which we can use. For now, thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, and see you soon in the next videos.